All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Canandaigua Town Board meeting for April 22nd. We'll begin tonight's meeting with a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember John King.
Present.
Councilmember Terrence Fenley.
Present.
Councilmember Alan Rudolph. Present. Councilmember David Sauter.
Present.
Supervisor Jared Simpson.
Present. Can you also confirm that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes, it was.
Perfect. We do have written communications that are in the binder over by the door. Actually, they got brought in, so they should be making their way around the binder there with communications for this last cycle. We do have time at this point for one first privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time? All right. See no hands. We will continue with our priority business. We do have the birthdays this cycle are Todd Wood, Chip Saylor, and Phyllis Goodwin. So happy birthday to those employees of the town of Canandaigua. We do have a couple presentations tonight. Our first one under priority business is Ian Coyle from Pracademics Partners, and Ian will be giving us an update on the search process. So the floor is yours. Ian said he'd keep it to an hour.
So thank you for placing me on the agenda and accommodating me for this presentation. For those that do not know me, I'm assisting the town with the town manager recruitment process. I was here before to provide an update some time ago as part of the town's commitment to letting the public know what's going on with the process and kind of that transparency. I'm sorry, I've got my back to some of you, so I apologize. I'll kind of do a little spinneroo here. That we would continue, and I say we and me on behalf of the town would continue to provide updates as far as how things are going, where we are in the status, and report out accordingly. So I guess you could say, please let this serve as one of those updates along the way for the process. Just to sort of set the table on where things have gone and kind of where we're at right now, and then what are the moving forward points that we need to tackle or still address. So position was posted, various outlets, professional associations, networks, alumni groups, regional contacts and networks, folks that are in the profession of local government management, the Finger Lakes area, groups and associations. Through that, we did generate, I would say, a good amount of interest that ended up leading to 26 individuals who ended up expressing interest formally in the position. So we had 26 folks who, from really a lot of different types and walks. So a couple of states were represented in that. Certainly a couple of regions were represented in that. And those were all then received and reviewed. My recommendation in consultation with Lindsay and also Jared was to move forward with 6 of those individuals for right now. I would consider them kind of like a grouping of 6 finalists, if you will, to move forward. Just kind of a snapshot of those candidate profiles while maintaining confidentiality, but just speaking a little bit to the grouping of those people. All either possess a master's degree, or there's a couple that were their master's of public administration is in progress. A mix of some public sector, non-for-profit, quasi-governmental and private enterprise experience. So, there's a healthy mix of folks with different backgrounds in that pool. I would say from the regional perspective, they all are presently in New York State, not necessarily in this exact area. I would say kind of from central to western New York, there's some heavy Finger Lakes representation amongst this group as well. Some obviously have more governmental experience than others. So I think that's representative of what we thought would happen. We thought we'd have kind of a healthy, diverse mix of experiences. Up front, I did for those 6, asked them to do kind of a Q&A, a series of kind of statements to their candidacy, why the interest, drilling down a little bit more on just the resume. Certainly conversations have been had with these individuals as well. That's all been received. That sort of packet of information will be provided to the town board, who is the hiring body for this position. They will then review it and interview these people, probably over the course of, I would imagine, 2 distinct and separate days on blocks of time. Ideally, then they would be arriving at a finalist grouping. That's probably 2 or 3 people, move to that next and final phase. And out of that, you would make a selection off of that. So as far as a timetable, I think in the next couple of weeks, we're looking to schedule those finalist interviews. There'll be more communication throughout the process. I will come here again and update the public and the board as a whole to where we are in that process. But I can kind of, a sweeping kind of assessment or statement would be that, a productive process to date, fruitful process to date, a good mix of applicants. Certainly people that I feel can do the job and would succeed and have the capabilities to succeed in the position. Anxious to see how that plays out in the interview process. Just like every other interview process, you want to see if ideally they look this way or represent this way when they actually get to the interview. How do they react? How do they react to scenarios, questions that are posed by the board? What's important to the board? And then the fit has to be there for the board. So you would go through that process, feel who is your best fit, and then go through the recommendation. So in a nutshell, moving along as planned, as through the process, I think we're in a good spot. We just need to find the one that's the right fit for the town.
All right,
happy to take any questions, obviously within the realm of what I can relay in a public setting to anybody that might have any questions.
Any board members have any questions for Ian?
When are you going to be giving us that packet?
This week, probably by Thursday.
And I would like to say, as being part of it, it's been very enlightening being on this part of the process and watching Ian work and the connections that he has and the feel that he has for the entire process. It has been very, very impressive from my end watching you go through that. So thank you for the time you put in so far, and thank you for being here for us. Yep. And I did tell him he doesn't have to stay for the whole thing. He knows the drill. He knows what it's like. So you at least have to stay for the fire presentation.
Yeah, sure.
That's mandatory. You don't get validated if you don't stay for the fire.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ian.
Yep.
All right. We also, I'd like to fail to recognize we have Chief Magnera and we have Manager Goodwin from the City of Canandaigua.
Good evening,
so thank
everybody.
you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
And the Chief has his annual report to share with us and information for the board. So I will turn the time over to you.
Yes, I'll keep it brief. Because again, you didn't have a chance to digest the report. My apologies for not getting out soon to you guys.
That would see, but he's taken ownership. The ownership is on me for this. Well, so you don't have to.
Again, so if you feel free to stop me if you have any questions along the way. But anything that after tonight, email me, call me. If you have any questions, I'll clarify any answers or questions you may have. Next slide, please. Actually, you can go to the third one. So last year was a monumental year, as we know, just with the flooding alone. Our calls for service total of the city and the town were almost 2,500 calls for service. That's the most on record we've ever had. It was a 10% increase from last year. And since I started as fire chief in 2017, it's a 72% increase in the fire calls for both districts. So we are getting busier and busier. Our calls are getting more and more complex. Obviously, fires are down. You're not seeing much stuff in the news, which is great because I attribute that to our talented fire prevention educators that's out in the schools every single day, or at least a couple times a month. Again, we last year was 2,474 calls for service. We had 55 fires. Those fires range from full-on structure fires to small kitchen fires or cooking fires that are all kind of coded under what's called the National Fire Incident Reporting System. We ran 1,239 EMS calls, basically any of the ALS level calls. A majority of those, ALS is advanced life support. So those are the serious calls that we get. And we had an increase in motor vehicle accidents. As you well know, you drive around the area, you probably see a lot of accidents that we respond to. Some are more serious than others, but we have seen an increase, especially in the town, with motor vehicle accidents. Sandhill, Emerson 28, those are our trouble spots still. Jim knows he pulls up on a lot of them too. And 332 at Airline is another trouble spot for us. In the town district, we ran 496 calls, just shy of 500. Again, there's a breakdown that's drilled down every single call type within the report. I'm not going to bore you with that, but again, we only had about 8 fires in the town last year. 2 of which were more so property damage. One at the school district at Parkside Drive was more electrical fire that was contained to the electrical room. Another one was a small house fire. Our top incidents for the year were obviously rescue EMS. That's nationwide. There's always gonna be more EMS calls and fire calls. Thank God we have, through different codes, enforcement, prevention, community risk reduction programs along those roads, we're seeing a decrease in fires. But when we do see those fires, they're more complex. We're starting to deal with lithium-ion battery fires. You've probably seen in the news. Not so much electric cars yet, but you'll see those. I mean, when they are, it takes copious amounts of water, foam, and other agents to put those fires out. We haven't caught up with a winter in New York yet with those. What's the salt do to those types of vehicles? What's the corrosion and other things? So we're monitoring those trends. I say we, as my counterparts in the fire service across the country, monitor those trends. Service calls, they were up last year as well, both for the city and the town. Those are your public service calls, anywhere from the cat in the tree to deer in a pool to assisting in other agencies like law enforcement. And then also we do a lot of standbys we had a lot of law enforcement standbys, a lot of mental issues across the area that requires fire and EMS to kind of stand by with law enforcement to help them out, as well as just routine service calls such as a gas odor or a carbon monoxide scare, something along those lines. False alarms, false calls, those are pretty steady. We haven't seen an increase or decrease in that. That's the standard for the industry. Again, they're increased a little bit from last year, but nothing too crazy. Busiest months, obviously last year was July. July 9th, the flood. We had over 200 calls for service in 24 hours between the city and the town. Thank God we were able to handle every single incident with our resources, as well as our mutually partners that came from Monroe County and State Fire, as well as New York State Parks Police. And we put our firefighters to the test for 24 hours, and I commend them on that. They did not get any rest until everyone was made safe and we had places for them to go and whatnot. Utilities were secure. Close second was March and May. Usually it's on trend for the year. It's usually July, and once you start seeing the weather start to turn, this was when we start getting busy. Any questions on that? Again, I'll let you guys drill through the report as you see fit. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or yes, sir.
Busiest time.
Busiest times, yes.
What Sunday, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, so it varies every single year. If you look last year was Friday at 6 o'clock. And then for some reason this year, Sunday happened to be the day between 6 and 7. And yeah, it's just every year it's different. I can't tell you why it happens, and it's one of those things where just the luck of the year, I guess. But yeah, last year was Friday, I think from 5 to 6. So trying to get home and or go out.
I wonder if the bills had anything to do with that.
It may be.
A little, maybe.
Go feel free to the next slide. And again, this is a breakdown of 50-year totals, and you can see the trend. Again, it was a 72% increase from when I started as chief in 17 to now. So again, it's on standard. That trend is nationwide. It's nothing exclusive to our area. There's nothing that we're seeing or not doing accordingly. It's just we're busy. It's just the fire department is taking on more roles than the traditional service has. It's not just putting out fires anymore or going on those types of calls. Again, we're seeing very complex types of incidents out there. Our technical rescue program, roped rescue, confined space rescue program that has been augmented because there's been rules changed with the OSHA standards. So companies and public utilities are using us more to stand by for them. So there's a lot of changes in the works here, and something we're monitoring very, very closely. Next slide, please. And real quick, this is going to break down what's new for 2024. we were able to purchase new AEDs. All of our defibrillators in our vehicles were outdated. And we were able to purchase 7 of them, as well as what's called a rescue CPR system. It's basically a handheld thumper or CPR assist device. We'll be rolling that out. We just got them in actually a week ago. And we'll be rolling out training and getting them on trucks here momentarily. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of cardiac arrest calls in our area. We always try to get the best equipment possible, as well as the assist to emergency squad. We purchased more water rescue gear, as well as a new NRS all-surface rescue boat. We damaged ours during the flood, dragging across the concrete, doing a lot of swift water rescues. So we were able to purchase a brand new one that's a little bit more sturdy, a little more stout. Plus the one that's replaced was about 20 years old. So it was actually time for it to go retirement. We purchased a new rope gear and confined space rescue gear, again, to augment our program. Back in February, I sent the whole department through hazmat incident command training. Last year, I sent the whole department to get hazmat technician level training. So it's one of the highest levels of hazardous materials training you could offer. So we're going to be able to get in a suit and go into a chemical spill. Before, we only had a handful of members, including myself, that able to do that capability. But now they get the whole department that has that capability, should the county need resources or anything of that nature. And again, we are diligently working on trying to reduce our ISO PPC rating. That's our public protection classification rating. Right now, we're an ISO rating of 4X. We have not had a full ISO audit since 2005. They did a brief one back in 2016, but that didn't encompass all the water improvements that Jim and you all have done to the community since 2005. So trying to get that person in here to say, hey, we've done a lot of improvements, not just with ourselves and the fire department, but the water department, as well as 911 communications. Again, you've probably seen the news that they're top notch. They got all brand new equipment. So I have a good feeling that once I get that person in here to give us an audit, we will reduce our classification at least by 2. We probably won't be a 1 for anytime soon, just because it takes a lot more manpower, as well as training grounds within your district to do that. But it's unachievable. We're still working on it. John, we talked about it for the last few years about that. So again, that's something that we're excited about. We've really tried to tailor our programs and policies and training around reducing that. And what that means for you folks is it reduces your insurance rates, especially for business owners. So your fire insurance would lower considerably, more so on the business side than homeowners, but you'll see some savings there. Questions? And I keep it quick. Keep it quick. So without further ado, if you guys have any questions, I'll leave you to it.
I did. So the benefit of the ISO PPC rating, does that affect home insurance rates?
Yes.
So that'll be a positive impact.
It is a positive impact. It's more so on the commercial side of the house. So like the Pactos, Acoustics, and everybody else really enjoy that. But again, you'll see some savings within the homeowners as well.
And then, are we prepared for EV? Do you think we are?
I don't think anybody is. FDNY is actually spearheading it at New York City through their code changes and everything else. You probably see some news, articles or just YouTube, any of those fires. A lot of them happen there because you're getting a lot of knockoff stuff from Amazon or wherever. So you're getting these devices that are really cheap, these toys or scooters that are, hey, I could get this for $10 on Temu, instead of going through a reputable dealer. And those devices we're seeing aren't certified by UL or Certified Europe or any of those testing companies. So you're getting kind of what you pay for. And it's no different than kind of, you ever charge your cell phone, leave it on the bed, or leave it somewhere and it gets hot, or your computer, your tablet, something like that. Again, Apple and some other products make those casings a little better. But again, you get something, a little knockoff brand. Those cases that conceal that lithium ion doesn't hold up to the heat, and the heat cooling, it fractures that, and then that's how you get a fire. So yeah, I think we're just kind of scratching the surface on this. There are agents out there. We have foam available that will help with that we store in our trucks. It's called F500. We're training that. I send out training on this all the time, as well as our training officer. But again, it's so new. And I think even with all aspects of it, like trying to change the code on how do we handle energy source systems and that stuff. It's all kind of really kind of new to us. And we just kind of get our head wrapped around it and do the best we can with what we have. So.
Any questions for the chief?
I saw that your average response time went down. That's awesome.
It did. So through technology, through some of our apps, as well as we have our data terminals on our trucks now, as well as the station boards. You've probably seen them in there. It has all the calls. We mirror what 911 sees. So as soon as 911 gets the call, it pops up on our computers in the station. And the firefighters are already on their feet, going to the bay, starting the truck up, getting their gear on before it actually goes out on their radio. So a lot of times we're exceeding that, or we just happen to be out in the district, because one of the concerning trends that I'm watching is our simultaneous calls. That's what that means is we're seeing, 2 to 3 calls at the same time. We're able to cover that. But that has increased since last year. Even if I strip out the flood and anything of that nature, any weather event, we're still seeing an increase in that. So that's something we're monitoring. That's how where should we deploy our resources more? Should I put the engine back in the town or the ladder or whatever? So we're playing with that. We're looking again about staffing, as well as we have to put another truck up. Again, that's just looking in the future here on how we go about doing that. So again, as of right now, it's a trend we're monitoring. That's nothing that I'm too concerned about, but there is a concern.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to explain. Simultaneous calls are, some of these are, it's like 25 simultaneous.
Yeah, so that would be
that
would be a flood and windstorm event. So yeah, if we get a weather event, we're getting wires down. So we have to prioritize those. Like we have a tree down the road.
Yeah.
Well, we have arcing and sparking wires on a house. We have to go, so it's one of those ones that might hang out for a little while. But we're able to cover all those in a timely fashion.
But the ones that are over like 5 or more, is that mainly from the flood then? Or
we've actually had some where, knock on wood, we didn't turn a wheel all day, and next thing you know, we're getting 6 calls in a row.
Okay.
Like 3 ambulance calls, an automatic fire alarm, and a gas call. So with that, I'm proud to say that our firefighters are very dedicated, and they do come out on overtime and pick up a reserve piece when it happens, especially the ones that live close by. So it's a true help when they do that. So and plus we have our mutual aid partners, is what that could help. We don't let anything go. We don't let anything, we always cover all the calls. And again, we'll deploy our resources how we need to deploy them.
And you have the full staff now of 18.
So we do have 18, but I just lost one to a different. So I'm in the process of, I have a transfer prospect, as well as I have a few people we're going to interview. So I have one of our firefighters, our newest one, is in the academy right now. He's doing great, getting good reviews. He's about 4 weeks in. He's expected to graduate, I believe, the first week of June on him. So he'd be battle ready to go, because he's already done kind of the stint of our training in-house. His academy was late this year. So again, I just lost one to Monroe County. It's just can't compete with a lot of departments up there. So and we're diligently trying to get that position filled. But yeah, you do have 4 firefighters on duty every single day right now, so we're able to cover that.
John and the chief, I don't remember how many of these board members were here when the fire report, joint city town fire report was done, and the contract. How are we towards meeting those goals?
So yeah, we satisfied everything that we could possibly do. Yes. So yeah, we met the 2018 recommendations. We hit every single point that was in our control. There was some stuff that the 911 center had to do. There was some stuff that they're looking to regionalization of the departments, consolidation, things of those natures. But everything that we did as both the city and the town, we satisfied those requirements. So again, I hated that we just lost one, to keep probably, but again, that's just the nature of anywhere, right now. So, but yeah, I could probably say that, I'm proud of our firefighters for working hard. And thank you both, the city and the town for doing that for us.
Thanks for all that extra work, particularly this year with the summer storm. That was really exceptional.
Yeah, they did an exceptional job. So. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. There we go. Nice job, Chief. Thank you, guys. All right, we have no continued public hearings at this time. We do have a new public hearing. See you guys. Thanks. Coming back for more? Oh, I thought you were going to represent. I think you're right. Thank you. Working for us. Working. Yeah. So we have a new public hearing regarding the adoption of a text code amendment to town code creating chapter 201 short-term rentals to replace chapter 220-9.1. Resolution 2020-111 pertains to this public hearing. And at this time, I declare the public hearing open and would open the floor to anyone who would like to be heard at this time on this topic. So if Adam, if you could just state your, when you get up, go ahead to the mic and state your name and address or property that you are referring to, so then we can get that in the minutes.
Okay, my name is Adam Schwartzweiler. I own the property at 6162 Urique's Drive. That's on the corner of Machine Road. And it is a short-term rental. And I have come to kind of voice my, I don't know, more frustration as to how this was set up. And especially when it came to this year's permit process. This year, the permit was, a letter was sent out basically stating that I hadn't paid my permit, I had forgotten, or I actually think I came in at the end of last year and was told that the new process was being set up. And it was news to me when I got a letter that was yellow with the URL of our Airbnb, and it ended up being $900 as opposed to $100 from last year. And it just seemed that out of my frustration was that everybody I think in the town who has an Airbnb has had permits in the past. And we have paid for the permits. We have entered our emails. I think that was on file, most likely with you guys. And there was no notification, no outreach to people owning short-term rentals. And I know that I'm probably an outlier when it comes to short-term rentals themselves. I think, yeah, there's a lot of investors and everything, but our house has been in the family since it was a school, and my grandmother went to school there. I purchased it from my grandmother there 2 years ago. I did all the work myself. And it's a place for family to come into town and stay at, and it's not really an investment, but a $900 fee to us is, that's a whole nother tax bill, as opposed to somebody else who maybe has a property on the lake. So I think I just sort of want to send my voice out and say that, yes, I do appreciate that, people are looking into, new regulations around it. I always thought, hey, we should have an inspection of the home. I think that's a safe bet. I, did all the electric myself on this house. I had an electrician come inspect it. I put the new furnace in. I had HVAC person come inspect it. And I know that rentals in the city of Cannon, they would need an inspection, I think, every 2 years or 3 years. And I don't see why that can't be the case for short-term rentals. But it doesn't seem to me that in the proposed legislation that it says that there may be a requirement for an inspection. It doesn't say that there will be. I think, to be honest, there should be. But on the other hand, I think we're trying to maybe tighten the grip a little, regulate a little bit these short-term rentals on the lake, where it is for us, it's going to basically it's going to make it not viable if prices start going up on fees, on permit prices and everything like that. I also saw that there was a requirement for floor plans, a requirement for septic system.
About 30 more seconds.
30 more seconds. And for a requirement for documentation on the septic system. And I look back at my emails, and I think it was Chris. I don't know if he's in charge of the permit last year, but he had emailed me. He has all the documentation already on file. Because he mentioned, well, you said there could be 6 people there. All right. And he knew exactly how large the septic system was. So, and then final note, I think, was the process of paying for this this permit. And it's going through a website that literally I cannot pay for it on my phone if I wanted to. I moved to a place without internet. And so I was trying to pay on my phone and you can't do it. So I don't know where the cost of this private company, I think it's called Permit Cloud or something like that, Cloud Permit. But I'm a software engineer and I don't know how much money is going towards it, but I can't even pay for it on my mobile device. I think that is pretty absurd, in my opinion, on their software side. But I do understand where everyone's coming from on this, and I appreciate all your time. And I can go ahead and speak.
All right, thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard at this time? All right.
Actually, they might want to be heard.
Had a feeling. All right.
Al Lupton, I've been here before. So I just want to follow up on my March. Sorry.
Someone on that was feedback from online. So go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to follow up on my March 24th email that I had sent. I just think you guys have done a great job listening to the feedback of both the other property owners in Canandaigua as well as some short-term rental owners. So I certainly applaud that. I think there's a couple things that are lacking still in the law, and it's where the law, I think, is silent on a couple topics. One of which is, when is the code enforced? So if you don't have short-term, if you're renting for 2 or 3 weeks out of the year and you're using the property as your own residence the rest of the time, you know, the code would imply that there's all these different restrictions and things that you have to do with signage and, you know, various items. I won't go through it, it's in my email. But again, I think that the code could be a little clearer to say it's when you have, you know, folks in residence, or again, I'll leave that up to you to figure out the wordsmithing, but to have someone come knock on your door when it's your family in residence and say, I'm coming to inspect your short-term rental, and by code, you have to let that person in, I think is an overreach. The other couple other things I would just suggest, I know there's been a lot of talk from numbers with occupancy, and I would just suggest, if you're going to be requiring people to put up signage, again, signage can be communicated either by sending the folks all of the documentation in advance that they need to review prior to coming to check in, having a book on the table, that type of thing that has all that information in it. And again, if you're going to require people to post signage, I would ask that you allow people to post what is the requested occupancy, not the maximum occupancy. It goes in line with what you're trying to do, which is to have smaller rental numbers in properties. I don't want to post that I'm allowed to have, you know, 24 people when I don't want to ever rent any more than 16. And so again, the code enforcement officer kept saying that you had to post the maximum occupancy. I think you could write the law to say you're posting, you know, the licensed occupancy or something like that. And then lastly, I think the important thing is, well, 2 points. One would be trying to help, you know, the relationship between the code enforcement officer and the owner or the property manager. If you could just put some rules in place that says, you know, the code enforcement officer has 36 hours, you know, 4 days, something in which they need to let the homeowner know that there's a problem. You've got phone numbers, you've got email addresses. Somehow they first need to determine, is it a renter on property? If you notify me, I can take care of the issue immediately. If I find out 4 days later that people have checked out, I don't have any recourse. And again, the law is silent on that. So I just wish you would put something in there that has, you know, some type of enforcement loop. And then lastly, just, you know, you're changing the permits from 3 years to 1 year. I think that's great, but I think a lot of people did the right thing and got the 3-year permits. Somehow you should have some policy that says you can now update your permit to the new occupancy, whatever it might be. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
And my daughter has a lacrosse game tonight, so I apologize.
Right, see ya.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Go Braves.
Yeah.
Oops. It was just a slip. It slipped out.
Hello.
Okay, sir.
Hi, thank you. I'm Brett Thompson, 4969 Island View. So I just want to convey some of the things that he said in terms of thank you, like I was at the previous meetings. I don't remember the first person's name, but I do agree that in the beginning there could have been better communication, but I think since then the communication's been very good. Like I've received all the information, seen everything, been able to look at everything, so I think that's been excellent. Overall, I think the new proposed law is much better than the previous one in balancing both residents that may be concerned about short-term rentals and owners that have short-term rentals. One of the things that Alan said that I agree with is just the maximum occupancy too. I do think that if the zoning thing says a maximum occupancy, I think the law should just say that we can list a number smaller than that's what's there, but not can't exceed what the zoning officer says, because it guests would see that and say, hey, we can bring more people in. That's what's not what it says online. Because we also want to minimum. I want my property to have less than what the maximum hold as well. I don't want big groups in my property. And then the other one is I do think I saw in the law that it says if you already paid for a 3-year permit, that you automatically will last 3 years and then you have to renew. But it doesn't really make clear about whether, because my permit has an occupancy that will not. My current occupancy of that permit is lower than what it was before, but I think I'm at 8 now. I think it was 2 per bedroom, which is 4. But I have very large bedrooms in a fairly large house, so I'd probably like to be 10. I think when it looks at with the UCC code, it's going to probably be able to do 12 to 14, but I only want it to be 10. I just want to make sure that I can go up to what the new code says with the existing permit. So I don't know how that's handled. That's it.
All right.
I just want to thank you all.
Okay, thank you, sir. It's like to be heard. Please.
Go ahead. I've got 5 questions here.
We'll come right back. Go ahead if you can.
Okay, it's unclear to me what
you can state your name real quick for the record, sir.
Yeah, this is Lawrence Cook, longtime resident of the town. What is the criteria used for determining the maximum occupancy for overnight guests? You know, I've heard that it's the number of bedrooms. I've heard it's square feet of each bedroom. I'd like to know exactly what the criteria is that you're using to determine maximum occupancy. Could I have an answer, Dave Sauter? Could you answer that question? These questions, no?
Mr. Cook, during public hearing, it's not really a dialogue. It's the chance for the public to make statements. I go ahead and pause this. Make statements for or against, or ask questions that we might come back and consider and look for answers later on. But it's not a question and answer session between the public and the town board by New York State, by code.
Okay, how do I get the answer to that question then? Because when I call up and ask somebody, nobody seems to really know to give me a succinct, discreet, to the fact answer.
So the best thing that you can do for that, and the thing that I would recommend is, the code's available online, but I would also, if you send an email to code enforcement, if you send an email to the info@Town of Canandaigua with those specific questions, then you will get answers to those. And somebody will get back to you with specifically answering those questions that you have.
Okay, here's an overall question. It's been said that approximately there's 200 or more short-term rental units within the town, and that there's permits on maybe 30 or 40 of those. I'd like to know and have someone come back to a town board meeting and say, what is our plan to close the gap and get those properties into compliance, and what's the timetable to do it? And I'd like to, until that's been accomplished, the town board get a regular monthly update on the status by the town zoning officer or by the head of compliance, Dave Sauter. That's my last question, and I provide that as constructive input to the town, and I commend the ordinance committee, both when run by John and currently by Dave. So I thank you for your support on that. And I look forward to the continuous improvement program and the implementation to bring all those properties into compliance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there you go, move quick.
Before somebody else comes in.
My name is Susan Foos, and we live on Westlake Road in Canandaigua, and we are the other side of it. We have an Airbnb next to us, and we want to thank you very much for all your efforts. It is wonderful what you have done, and hopefully it will take care of a lot of the issues we have had, and we have had many. It means a lot to us that you have taken the time, and we appreciate and have read through the article, and it seems to be answering a lot of our questions. One thing that we're a little concerned, the people that own the one next to us live in Jupiter, Florida. So there's no one around if there's an issue. They wanted us to contact them all the time, which that's not our job, and we're not going to do it. So hopefully that is one thing that will be handled. And if you have a complaint line, we appreciate that too. But we want to thank you very much from our side. You've done an awesome job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Anyone else online? I don't see any other, not see any other hands online. Are there any board members who would like to make comment at this time, or wait till we get to the resolution? I'll take the silence as wait till we get to the resolution. All right. And at this time, and as we've discussed, one thing, my intention is to close the public hearing at this time. There will either be a vote taken on the resolution as it exists, or if there are substantive enough changes to the resolution, to the local law, then there would be another public hearing held if those changes, and if the board determines that they have created enough of a change that it should go out to the public again before we make a decision on it. So we won't change it significantly and then vote on it tonight. If there's significant changes, then we'd go through this process one more time to have give everybody the chance to 30 days to see the new proposed changes and then be prepared to make comment on those. All right, so this time we will move to reports of town officials and department heads. Mr. Fletcher.
Yep. Be a letter going out to the residents, Middle Cheshire, probably the second week of May, White Cliff and 520. Getting the goal to get them informed of the upcoming mill and fill project. So that's 5/14 through the 21st. This is all weather related. So we message boards up and a letter going out to say, be prepared for delays and so on and so forth. Where exactly? From White Cliff to 520. Bristol Crossroad. We started working on that. We found a lot of other issues. Trying to have a dump back in the day, so we have a whole lot more. It's not even filled.
No, I said that's what they use.
Oh, that's what they used it for. So we got quite the hole out there now. It's going to take extra funding to get that fixed. So, and I know that the board had talked about doing other projects this year. I'm not sure what, if that money is going to be done this year for the unexpended fund balance. That's something we're going to discuss soon or not, because I'd like to know if you are, so I can schedule that with vendors to get the work done.
We had,
We talked about that a bit during finance. I mean, we were wishing you were there so we could have had a better conversation with you about what you were looking for. But I think all of us were in agreement that a good portion of the unassigned fund balance that we'd be paying down would go towards some highway projects. So.
we discussed capital projects in our last Public Works Committee meeting, but we never finished it.
Right.
So when you get down to planning and public works and this agenda, I suggest we finish that at our next meeting. And that would, that's when you get half an hour.
And I'm expecting the budget to pass from the state. And currently the funding they did remove is apparently back in, but we haven't received yes, absolute answer to that. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. We do not have our assessor or historian present. Town clerk, Heather, do you have anything?
Yeah, so today our third deputy started, Jaren Outhouse. We're super excited to have her join our team. I hope that she enjoyed her first day, absorbing all that we threw at her. And so we just look forward to her getting trained and being an important member of our team.
All right, thank you so much. I did not see Sarah. Did we scroll down and see Sarah on in the meeting?
I thought I saw Sarah.
I haven't seen all the way down yet.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, do you have anything to any updates from the planning department?
No, not beyond my report at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Lindsay, it's nice to have you in person. Do you have anything for HR or parks?
Yeah, just a really quick update. So we are starting our seasonal staffing. So that's in full swing right now for our summer jobs, for gatehouse, ranger, lifeguards. Held a couple interviews over the weekend for some new staff and they were really great. So really excited to bring on board. We hire about 22 seasonal staff members each year. So it's a really exciting time for us. I do know that there is a Parks and Rec committee update that I believe Dave will update us on.
Do you have it? Yeah. Okay. Then I won't steal your thunder. No, that's fine. More reviews better. Okay, so for supervisor, deputy supervisor, financial reports are included in the agenda. I just would say that over the past couple of weeks, we've had some significant discussion as it pertains to housing within the town of Canandaigua. There's some exciting projects that are in the initial stages, in various stages of the planning and the development stage. And these are not in the conceptual stage, they're getting to where they're beyond that point. So that will be a benefit and a tremendous impact to the area. So I'm excited for that, and keep your eyes open for more information coming out on some of those projects. That is all that I have for myself at this time. For town boards and committees, finance, Adeline?
Yeah, we had a finance committee meeting on April 11th. We discussed several issues, which a lot of them led to resolutions on tonight's agenda, including where to spend the balance of the ARPA funding, bringing in the New Wave Energy consultants for the town energy bills, adding New York Muni Trust as a potential place to invest some of our funds, closing some capital projects, and increasing the line for the attorney bills this year. So.
Seems like it's gonna be a monthly thing. All right, thank you. Yep. All right, ordinance.
Yes, we've been working obviously on short-term rentals. Hopefully that will come to some fruition either tonight or at the next meeting. We've also been just starting to delve into a little bit of workforce housing surrounding some of the farm labor housing stuff. So we'll put that on the top of the agenda once we get through the short-term rental.
I crossed it out and then I don't come back. So you already said something, so I thought you already reported.
You did.
All right, Jerry, go ahead. Public Works. Sorry about that.
Well, as I was saying, in our next meeting, I would like to finish up our discussion in capital projects. We went through our list and identified what we thought we could accomplish, but we never really made any firm decision in recommending what we would do for this year going forward. So in conjunction with finance, what we have available and what Jim sees as possible to accomplish. You know, hopefully we can make those decisions and start moving on. So, feel free to attend.
All right. Thank you. And I did want to say, I'd be remiss without saying that some of the meetings that we had this past week, I want to thank John for joining in on those and bringing his expertise to those. So thank you for that, for joining there. And do you have anything to add on any of the conversations that we've had? Okay. I do want to share one point. Last week, there was some discussion and there were some questions raised, and they came up about some of the farm labor housing and some of the other, and where we are within the town. I'm glad that the ordinance committee will be looking at that. I'd also like to thank our attorney for issuing a legal opinion on where we are with housing within our farm labor housing. One thing that is housing is confusing enough. Farm labor housing is even more confusing within New York State, because you have the federal regulations, you have state regulations, you have local regulations, and none of them talk to each other. None of them are the same, and they don't play nice with each other. And they all have different layers of understanding that are required. One of the questions that was brought up that we have seen is the migrant worker visa program. So we have farms that are attending that would like to build farm labor housing for these migrant farmers through the visa program. So they're here for a period of time, then they return home for a period of time, and then they're back. As I've done research so Mr. Nadler issued an opinion stating that because this is a federal program, it kind of trumps what we have within the town, which is something that we do need to look at to get a better understanding of. Just to last a little bit, I was looking at some neighboring towns. And even if you look at, if we take a look at Seneca and Gorham, the town of Seneca for farm labor housing, and I'm going back to farm labor housing, they require a special use permit for farm labor housing. For the federal program, you can't require that, which we've learned because it's part of the federal program. Then if you go to the town of Gorham, within their town code, they state that that it's basically a right to build. You have right to farm communities, they have right to build housing communities within Gorham. So you have the right to build that farm labor housing, whatever it might be. So that just kind of shows some of the complexities. So as we go through this and as we look at it, there are a lot of different layers that we need to break down. And I'm confident that our development office and our ordinance committee and our attorney and all of us will look together and look at that and find and decide what's best moving forward for the town. But we will need to address that. So do you have any comments on your
I do, actually. Thanks for
on your opinion. You always have an opinion, but do you have any comments on the opinion that you wrote down for us?
It was a great opinion. No, it's kind of
so good. I've heard
it's tremendous. It's a tremendous opinion. No, this is an interesting situation. I think you're seeing a lot more of it because of the program, like the visa H1 visa program.
Yeah.
I think there's money for farmers to take advantage of to really advance their farms by adding this farm labor housing. I want to be clear that in my opinion, our town code is not in violation of New York State law. New York State laws, when you add case law decisions, Commissioner of Ag and Market opinions in section 305 of the Agriculture and Markets Law, says you can't require a special use permit for farm labor housing. And it turns out our code doesn't. We have a section, but it's not actually required anymore. I think that might have been changed to accommodate that use. We do require building codes for that. I think what needs to be done is sort of, especially after this board made it very clear, you want to stand strong and support agricultural structures, agricultural buildings, and farm labor housing. We should clean up the code, but our code actually is in compliance one of your local farmers appealed. There's an appeals process because section 305A of the Agriculture and Markets Law says municipalities can't be too restrictive on zoning with agricultural buildings. And he said they're being too restrictive. We were able to respond with that memorandum and say, hey, actually, we just stopped being that restrictive and we're going to update our law. The farmer actually responded, he's in favor of that, thanked the town, and Ag and Markets came back and said, great, we're looking forward to it. You're a great farming community. Let us know what we can do to help with your code revisions. So what needs to be done is cleaning it up, making it easier to understand that there's support for farming and zoning, as opposed to, I just want to make sure everyone knows we're not in violation right now.
Is there somebody we could get from Ag and Markets for the ordinance committee meeting to help us out?
They said they'd love to take a look at a proposed code.
Once we do it, right.
And I'll tell you, once they saw that opinion, legal opinion that I produced, your development department, your town planner, your code enforcement jumped right in and are, figuring out all the potential pitfalls and things that a code cleanup should be good. You should probably have the expertise in this building to at least get a draft started. You can then send to Ag and Markets and say, what do you guys think?
She wasn't volunteering to attend our meeting.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, probably busy.
Any of the any housing would be subject to New York State Building Code, whether it has a federal touch to it, or they don't have their own standards. It would be New York State Building Code.
So in general, farm labor housing is subject to New York State Building Code. And our code enforcement officer goes out there and does what he would do for any housing. The H-1 visa program, and I only know this because Mike Murphy sent out a couple emails to town staff and myself saying, hey, just so you know, I've done this H-1 visa a number of times. This is the federal program. And essentially his job will be coordinating various agencies, Department of Health, Department of Agriculture. He seemed to imply that it's a more rigorous review than New York State Building Code. I think it's still subject to, but allowed some different exceptions, but I believe it's more stringent. That makes sense. It's different, but gets to the same place.
From what he explained to me was you open up your door to more regulatory agencies watching over the process, more federal agencies.
But in terms of health safety requirements, I would hate to see the Fed water something down. But,
yeah, I don't believe they water it down. I don't believe, for example, they require sprinklers in
they didn't use the term water to get into sprinklers.
That'll water something down.
I just have I'm not 100% fan of federal government regulation. No, don't trust them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Check with Mike Murphy on his take on it, because he's actually done this program when he was with the city of
Geneva,
on a number of occasions, he said. And I just don't, I think obviously it's situation, it's structure specific and project specific, so he might be able to give you a better.
Yeah, we just want to make sure whatever built is safe for the people who are going to be inhabiting. So.
I got the sense from Murph talking about the H1 program. That's insured. He's not uncomfortable.
It's not a shortcut.
Well,
to get somewhere.
But I would suggest checking with him on that.
Okay, thank you for that. Dave, did you want to give the Parks?
Sure. Report. Parks Committee met on 4/22. They talked about work at Motion Junction continues with completion of play area fencing, site work, landscaping, picnic tables under the new pavilion. Conclusion of Motion's planning a community celebration for June 8th. There also discussed the military appreciation activity for Outhouse Park on May 18th, and they've been in contact, as well as Lindsay has, with Sergeant Calhoun from the U.S. Army. They're organizing volunteers, activities, and food trucks, and he'll continue to coordinate with Lindsay on that. I guess they're bringing a whole bunch of vehicles, maybe even probably a helicopter that they're going to land as well.
Do you know what time that is?
I think it starts at 11, doesn't it?
11 to 4.
Yeah. Ontario County Historical Society will hold their car show at Onondaga, scheduled for May 18th. Kiwanis is going to provide a bike rodeo overview that they're hosting at Outhouse on June 1st. Their focus is on bike safety with games and activities for those attending. Lindsay updated the committee on work being done in the new trails at Onondaga and sections proposed trails following difficult terrain, which will require planning advice from outside consultants. Uplands they're also discussing uplands and the removal of 3 cabins and site placement for the new cabin. Jared attended a meeting in March and shared an update on plans for the uptown area. They're working on things that they might consider proposing to the town board with incentive zoning. Their concert series is going to continue this year. They've added a June concert at Outhouse and a family movie night scheduled for the end of August. They're also working on the scheduled food truck at Outhouse Park each Wednesday night in in June, July, and August. And the next meeting is scheduled for April 24th at 6 p.m. here at the town hall. Art McNeil sent that out.
All right. Thank you. All right, we have time for our next privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time?
Our first, it's not on.
Hold on, Karen. Very good, you're live.
You're live.
So I wasn't going to say anything, but when you started talking about the farm housing, I did take this to the Economic Development Board last month, and we talked about it extensively, and we came to the same conclusion that you have, that different municipalities had different rules and regulations and different things they looked for. Some are able to accomplish the type of housing that the man who came to us at the last meeting wanted. Some are not. And we had an extent, and because that board, part of our charter is to encourage agriculture in Ontario County and support the use of agriculture. And part of that is workforce development. Part of workforce development is allowing them a place to live. So I appreciate what you all have looked into about that. What I would like you to do is to include a report about something like that happens at a previous meeting, that you go into detail about researching. And if you could just do a report and add it to the agenda for the next meeting, it puts that information into the hands of the people in the community. And some of us care about the fact that you do pay attention to what someone says when they come to this meeting. So I personally am interested, and I'm wondering if you would share what Chris sent you to me. You have my email address, and
it's okay to share that, the opinion.
Yeah, that opinion has actually changed. I sent it to the other people. There's agricultural buildings don't require site plan approval.
Okay.
Okay.
From site
so
plan
if you update it,
I crossed it out and resent it to Sarah.
Okay.
So she had, it's a procedural memo for the development department to follow. I copied you guys in.
Okay.
You get the gist of it.
Okay, I would appreciate that. And then I'll take it, I'll mention it at our next economic development meeting at the county level. Okay, thank you.
And I think with that, I mean, that opens a good question with the fact that because it is, you have multiple municipalities within the county, again, that whole county issue, seeing, because we can learn from what each other does. We can learn from what other municipalities do.
Yes.
And somebody might learn from what Mr. Nadler wrote down and shared.
And but the more people at the county level that work on this, the more likely they are to be able to accommodate farmers.
100%.
Let me just, as an aside, so you all are aware, New York State Ag and Markets Law, Section 305A protects farmers in county certified ag districts. If you're outside of an ag district, a county ag district, you're stuck with regular zone.
Could you copy the board with your latest revised opinion, please?
Yes, sir. Okay. It's
interesting.
That's not in there, but
right.
Yes.
No, that's interesting.
But I'd still like to see the updates.
I think you're right.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to be heard at this time?
Arbor Day celebration on Friday at 10 o'clock at Richard Ellis Park.
Okay.
What do you plant?
I was gonna ask that. What are you planting?
What are you planting?
A tree.
Really?
I don't know. Andy's going to get it first. He'll be here to play.
Go figure. I wasn't gonna guess that, but that's pretty exciting. All right, thanks, Dennis.
We'll have a crowd.
Okay. All right. Anybody online? I don't see any hands online to be heard at this time. Okay. For resolutions and motions, resolution number 96, the acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
Okay. Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 97, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by the town supervisor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Adeline, seconded by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 98, the amendment of the 2024 fee schedule, removing Babcock Hall.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Adeline, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 99, authorization for the town supervisor to execute the insurance renewal agreement.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? I do have, we mentioned this previously, but for the general public, we saw about a $40,000 increase in our insurance premiums. It's because there are open claims out that are still open for accidents. None of them were the town's fault. None of them were town employees' fault. Kind of wrong place, wrong time. Those will, as long as those are on there, we will be carrying about a $40,000 extra fee. And because of that, we can't even shop our rates because of that amount sitting there. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7 carries. Resolution number 100, authorization for the town supervisor to execute health insurance services for the 2024-2025 renewal cycle.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Dave. Any discussion on this one?
Just Lindsay had indicated this was increasing about 13 to 15%, which is generally following what's happening in the market overall. So.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 101, authorizing budget transfer to the general fund for attorney contractual expenses.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries.
In the future, your highway superintendent hides attorney budget line items in his budgets, water and highway. and special projects.
Okay. So now we know Jim's secrets. All right.
It was a secret, but
There's
other areas to pull that out, right? Other areas to pull that. Resolution 102, authorizing the town of Canandaigua to enter into a 24-month energy supply services agreement with New, and that should be New Wave,
which is what Ian.
Yeah, that was just a copy and paste error, with New Wave Energy, and authorizing the town supervisor to execute contract.
So moved.
So Dave and Adeline, everybody wanted that one. Any discussion?
So just confirming, when we talked about this in the finance committee meeting, I wanted everybody to know this is not a community choice aggregate. This is a energy supplier for the town properties only. So we're setting the town properties rate at 0.68 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. And just to make sure with that, there was some, by going to the 2-year lock, I know this was adjusted. This was another copy and paste transpositional error on this. This has been updated, so the online version of the agenda does reflect the most correct amount of 0.068. And this does not, this is only for municipalities. I don't know if you had mentioned that. This is only for municipalities and
for our municipalities.
Yes, and it's not for they only supply the service to municipalities, not the individual homeowners.
102.
So we have
for 2 years, we're going to be paying that 0.68 per kilowatt hour.
That's not accurate, is it?
Just for 1 year, right?
We asked for 0.66.
I thought the first year was 0.063 and the second year was 0.068.
No, they had offered either 0.66 for a 1 year or 0.68 for a 2 year. We asked if they would do 0.66 for a 2 year, and they came back with,
and they said,
no, it's 0.68.
0.068.
Well, wait, what does the
both years
say?
Yes. So we're locked by locking year 2 in. We're locking it at that rate.
Okay.
Just hedging. Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution 103, authorization for budget transfer and closing of the Cultural Historical Resource Survey Capital Project H31.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Adeline, seconded by Dave. Any discussion on this one?
Thanks for the team that worked on that. It's a
Yes.
great project, and did a really nice job, and still had over $500 left at the end, so that was nice.
Should move back into the general fund.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 104, authorization for the budget transfer and closing of the County Road Sewer Project, Capital Project H40.
Move. Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by.
The title should be indicating County Road 4 Sewer Project, Capital Project.
And this one, while the other one had a budget balance, this one has unfortunately has a deficit of 7365, which is coming out of contingency, so we can close this one out.
Terry, did you just want to explain what this was, what we were spending money on for this, what this was trying to do? Or do you want me to?
Well, it was the Canandaigua VA was updating their wastewater treatment facilities, and at that same time, it looked like there was an opportunity to tie in and produce or provide sewer service on County Road 4. So we spent some money looking into that through MRB, and unfortunately, the project at the VA, it came to the end of the money they had available, so the whole project stopped. And stopped with us too, as we were going to tie into a line they were bringing down from the VA. Where that stands with the VA, we don't know at this point in time. Maybe it gets reauthorized, refunded, and it goes on again. Whatever information we develop, would still be viable though. So one of the reasons I question feds.
Right, well, they can turn it on and turn it off.
Yep.
I know. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 105, authorizing budget transfer to H42 Town Hall renovations from the general fund unassigned fund balance.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Adeline. Any discussion on this one?
Yeah, this was talking about just beginning to get some work done on our town hall renovations, and we're talking about ways to spend down that unassigned fund balance to get it closer to our policy. It's something we discussed in finance.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 106, assigning authorized project groups for the use of ARPA funds.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Adeline, seconded by Dave. Any discussion on this one? Just a readjustment of the funds, so we're in compliance with indicating where we are spending the money from the COVID relief funds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 107, engaging with Bernard P. Donegan Incorporated for Municipal Bond Advisor Services and authorizing the town supervisor to execute the agreement.
Move. Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Shouldn't we have noted in here how much the contract is for?
Is it in the contract that's attached? You know, I just don't remember.
It's about 60,000.
At the finance committee meeting, 60 to 70, but
well, I just don't remember. BPD may charge by percentage.
There was that 60-70 was also bond counsel and Donegan and the selling at the other bond. There was 3 amounts there. They just I don't remember the total amount off the top of my head, John.
and my follow-up question is, could we distribute things like these contracts to board members for consideration review?
That should be in the attachments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Attachment 12.
Right.
Yeah.
So it says $199 per hour plus out-of-pocket expenses for additional work beyond the scope of this May 28th letter. As I'm rushing through it, I don't see
anything that's combining everything together. It's all individually for each section. So.
Do you want to make note? If you want, do you want to make note or amend it with that in there? Would that make you more comfortable?
Can you find it amount, Chris?
I'm looking.
I don't think it's indicating a total price. It's indicating in each section, like so. Part 2, the charge for loan coordination will be $11,835 plus out-of-pocket expenses. And then in another part, they say
part 4 is $1 million to $5 million base fee of $22,236 plus $1.4206 per thousand.
Yeah. So they have, it's different in each section. There's a different fee for each thing, depending on how much it's looking to borrow.
Just by way of explanation for people, these services that we're asking to be provided, we are applying for a WIA grant for $5 million from the state to replace some of the asbestos concrete pipe that we have in the ground. We have 50 miles of pipe in the ground. This proposal is to dig up and replace all that pipe that's on Middle Cheshire Road, down Wells Curtis Road to County Road 16. Project itself, if we're not awarded the $5 million grant, is not going to go ahead at this point in time. We would have to find another way to finance it, so. Question I would have is, how much of the services they provide, if we are not awarded the grant, would be useful for, you know, if we find another source of funding a year from now or whatever period of time.
Well, so I believe what BPD is gonna do is find the money to make up the difference between whatever amount you get from the grant and the total cost of the project. That's what I got from MRB's preliminary engineering report.
But if we don't get the WIA grant itself,
yeah,
that 3 million is, you gotta put another 5.
That 3 million needs to become 8.
That 3 million has to be, yeah.
Which BPD, I'm sure, will be happy to
find for you. I don't see that.
Are we prepared to do that?
But we would have to bond it. So we've, the discussion. Correct.
Oh, you're saying, what if you don't want to do that? I believe your WIA grant says, we understand that we don't know how much we're getting, and we agree to make up whatever the difference is. So if they give you 100,000, I mean, I'm sure there's a method by which you can say not now, but
we're not obligated to move forward.
Yeah.
This is just advisory services. This is not.
I don't. My understanding is that BPD's heavy amounts come when it's financed. So if, when the bonds go out to market,
yeah,
I mean, they've got a $4,000 fee initial, but they make their money at the end. So if you never get there, you haven't spent that much on BPD.
Then we wouldn't be spending the total amount.
Yeah, I'm going through and just adding it up right now real quick so you guys know.
And I guess my question relative to being copied with this is not, I recognize that it's in a package, but is it a way for us to get it a little earlier so that, you know, we're not rushed from between Thursday when we have our pre-meeting until Monday when we have our board meeting?
Well, that's actually a discussion that Sue and I had been having a few hours ago to adjust some of the timing to provide the information a couple of days earlier, and have that information there. But you are correct. It should have had that information outlined in there with some more of their costs. I mean, they weren't set, but
kind of hard to outline
to with it when it's so fluid. Yeah. When we did the water tank, Jim, if you think back to that, was there any contingency for the water tank project? Because that was a WIA grant.
Well, there's always contingency on.
No, what I'm saying is if say the WIA grant didn't go through. I know we had squirreled away money, so we'd be able to offset it. Correct. But had that gone through, because I was here on the tail end of that, had that not gone through, the WIA money not come through, what was the plan for the water tank?
There was not a plan. So well, put it this way. I don't think the board would have went through it because the expense to the water district was that.
The plan would have been a doubling of the water rate.
We would have been astronomical with O&M rate.
Right.
Just to make to pay for it. Okay. And I don't think at that time the town board was interested in doing that to public for that purpose. Okay. So they would have to go back like we would do next year. Let's say we don't receive a WIA. We have the PER already. You don't necessarily spend this money at bond or with financial because you didn't receive it. You would apply again next year, right? And see if you receive it. Then you might have these expenses then. Some of these expenses from financial, bond, legal, some of it is eligible to be reimbursed by the grant itself. For those purposes. I think what I didn't see this, but my assumption is Donigan's office is asking you to enter into an agreement, and here's our hourly rate to do this work.
So this is pushed a bit because the application for the WIA grant has to be in by the end of June. Right. And we only decided a short time ago to pursue the WIA grant for this project, for a project such as this. So we really compressed everything, yes. So there wasn't really time for a lot of discussion and setting the stage.
Yes, so that had been had prior. If you'd gone through it before, you would have had some of that table setting would have been done already. But so the process is similar to the same process as the other, as far as the services they provide, what they do, and what our commitment might be, whether we receive it or whether we don't receive the grant, or we have funding.
So it looks like total expenses after closeout is 80,000 plus $1.42 per thousand borrowed per month. But the numbers that start with an 18,000, 22,000, 22,000 are all like immediately before or immediately after the actual financing of the bonds, sale of the bonds.
So my question about this is, this also doesn't indicate, you know, what line we would be paying this from. Would this come from Canada with Consolidated?
It will come from Consolidated.
Okay.
We would probably temporarily use the engineering line until an H line is created, so that money can be set aside in it, be carried from year to year, so you're not having to encumber it all the time.
But some of it is rolled into the amount you're borrowing, kind of like closing costs of the mortgage.
To add this, I think we didn't necessarily budget for this last year. So this year we will run a line somewhere where the engineer will say, we can feed it from different lines as time goes on until we get something settled. Once we get the money, that's where I think the town would take some of that unappropriated fund balance from the water district to use for soft cost until such time you get reimbursed.
The reason we didn't budget it is because the state didn't come out with the rules for the program until late last year, early this year. So it's an opportunity that we really need to try and grab a hold of. So try and get that brass ring. So,
and I guess my question's kind of been answered, that we have the numbers inside the agreement. So I'm comfortable with that.
Well, no, I'll tell you, I didn't read it earlier in terms of potential need for cancellation, because my reading of the preliminary engineering report was that this wasn't that optional. But in light of that, before Jared signs it, but I confirmed that it's cancelable.
That's a good idea.
I'm almost certain it is, based on glancing through it earlier today, but I can confirm that. Just
okay.
So good discussion. Thank you, everybody, on that. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 108, authorizing the entry into an out of user sewer agreement with 5805 Canandaigua Farmington Town Line Road to join the town of Farmington Sewer District.
Motion.
Second. Moved by John, seconded by Terry. Any discussion on this one? Since the resident's a resident of the town, we have to initiate the process. They will be joining the Farmington Sewer District. It just needs to start with us.
Jeff Graff, town attorney for Farmington, pointed the reason is that if they don't pay their water bill, it's too small of an amount to send to collections or send their town attorney to court to collect, you know, $80 here, $80 there. But and the town of Farmington can't add it to a town of Farmington tax bill or to a town of Canandaigua tax bill. But we could, a town of Canandaigua can, so we really need this.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 109, order for a public hearing on the town of Canandaigua 2024 water system improvements project.
Move.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Did we get an answer relative to the range of 77.65 to 232.83? I mean, I thought I saw something from MRB come through with one of the emails, but I don't know if it really answered the question.
So I'll explain, and then Jim, you can chime in if I'm missing anything on it. So they had to write it up based on a dwelling unit, based on a per unit amount.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they included in there, from the low end to the amount, the dollar amount that we might borrow, to the high end of the dollar amount that we might end up borrowing. That's just because that's part of the requirement for the application process for the money.
So just as clarification, 77.65 would be a grant, would be inclusive of a grant of $5 million, and 232.83 would be the amount exclusive of any grant?
Yes.
Good.
And but also considering the fact that it isn't really billed that way, it's billed based on usage.
Yep.
That was if we just billed per unit, but exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 110, a resolution to not adopt the 2022 wayfinding sign study proposed by Bergman Associates.
Motion.
In November 20.
Second.
So, wow. So
I didn't want to miss the opportunity.
okay, so
I figured.
moved by John, seconded by Adeline.
I could tell she was chomping at the bit to
Good job.
make them.
Way to jump in. Any discussion?
It just seemed like a heck of a lot of money to spend on signs in the era of GPS.
Yeah.
So
This is not something that was initiated by the town.
No.
Or the city. It was initiated by the CLDC and put together, funded by them, which we fund, the CLDC. Well, in essence, we did pay for the study, but the study itself, it's in the packet, the attached information to the agenda. There's literally hundreds of signs from the uptown area all the way down through the city, across the lakefront. Just overwhelming with signs.
Yes. And of that, as you can see broken down in there, the uptown amount was $440,000 just in the uptown Canandaigua area, which is significant.
Which is the cheapest.
That we're the cheap, yeah, we're bargain. All right.
I don't believe the city is
Adopted
this in the.
I don't think they've had taken any action on it or not.
Maybe this will get them going.
Maybe it will. We'll share it.
Buried.
We'll share it with them. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So that one carries. This excitement I've been around here for a while. Everybody's trying to get at it. That was good.
We're getting buzzers.
I know. Resolution 111, seeker determination of non-significance and adoption of a text code amendment to town code, creating chapter 201 short-term rentals to replace chapter 2020-9.1.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Terry. I assume we will have some discussion on this.
I got another chomp at the bit one for this one.
All right, so I'll open the floor to Adeline.
So I have, I'm glad that we're working on making this have some adjustments as well. I have a few more comments on it. The first one is just a simple note that keeps coming up about sleeping areas. It still says sleeping areas in 2016-C. So we need to kind of get rid of that. So that's the easy one. The second thing, we've talked a lot about this, and right now, you know, a question came up earlier. Right now,
we can. Sorry,
go ahead.
We can leave that because it might be a bedroom under.
The county had asked for it to
I think
go
you
on
want to leave. Well, I don't know why they did, but I would leave that sleeping area there.
They just said don't use sleeping area at all. So,
okay.
So the question had come up earlier of how we were evaluating the occupancy. And at this point with the current legislation, the occupancy is based essentially on New York State code and the size of the bedrooms. Previously, it had been based on 2 per bedroom. And I still have some issues with that. I recognize we have a lot of people that have that have very large bedrooms in their short-term rental properties, and they don't really fit with that style of occupancy. However, my biggest problem is that right now it's extremely difficult to explain to people, you know, even on the town board, what that occupancy means. According to my conversations that I've had with some of our zoning folks, some of the occupancies could be as high as 39 people overnight and 40 daytime, and an additional, you know, 39 daytime visitors. So 78 people altogether, which for me is not something that I want to have happening in a short-term rental. Now that's an unusual outlier to be sure, but it brings to me the point of perhaps we should think about a townwide cap on short-term rental occupancy overall. So at what point does a short-term rental turn into a commercial hotel? I mean, once you've got 20 overnight guests and which allowing 40 daytime guests, that's not really a residential application in a residential area. So I'm wondering if some of our questions in general could be answered by just creating a straight up townwide cap on the maximum occupancy of short-term rentals. The second question I have is that, you know, I worry again about if we have some of these short-term rentals that have a maximum overnight occupancy of 39, that maybe we need to go back to the 2 per bedroom, but that would be solved if we did a maximum overall occupancy. I just want to make this as easy as possible to follow for both the residents and the short-term rental owners and their neighbors and the code enforcement officers. And I worry that it's not very clear. The next thing I had a question about is, we had all talked about this in the ordinance committee, where would appeals processes go? We need to clarify that. Do they go to the town board, to the planning board, to the zoning board? How could somebody file for a variance to this code? What's the process for that? And that needs to be outlined. And then finally, we still had talked about, we need to change the fee in the fee schedule, which is currently at $900 is the fee, meaning it's for a 3-year. If we're switching this to a 1 year, that needs to be switched down to 300 or whatever we wish to do. So that's my overall comments. So
thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think we heard that from a couple of people today about letting, no matter what the maximum occupancy is, if the owner of the short-term rentals wants it to be 10 and they're eligible for 39, let it be 10. So let them decide what it's going to be and advertise that way. And regardless of what the number that we would allow them to do. And I'm with Adeline, to be quite honest with you. I think an overall cap across the whole town would solve all this situation of, well, this person has to go to the planning board and this, you know, person's headed there and somewhere else. So there's just no provisions for anything over a 20. Would we get sued, Chris, on that?
That doesn't seem that out of line.
So you think that's defensible?
Yeah, I think Adeline's hit the nail on the head. Come on, this is hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
That seems more reasonable.
Right.
And then, I mean, we had 2 people here today who could get over 20.
And they wanted less.
They don't want
less.
So I think we need to make that provision in there.
Well, where we originally came up with the 12, 16, whatever it was, is when we were originally talking about 2 per bedroom. We were like, okay, so if it's 2 per bedroom, there's not a lot of houses in the town of Canandaigua that are more than 6 bedrooms. So that's 12 people. And for the few houses that are larger than that, they can go to the higher committees. But so now we're not at 2 per bedroom, but really, I mean, there shouldn't be occupancy over 20, in my opinion, in any short-term rental.
Well, that's 40 people potentially there at any given time if they want.
And I don't know if 20 is the number. Maybe it's 18, maybe
20.
it's 16, but I think 20 is my lowest or the highest I would ever go.
Let's hear from John.
I guess what we haven't talked about yet, or haven't heard mentioned yet, is whether we are going to cap the number of occupants before it goes to the planning board for review. The way it's currently written, it says 16. The way we discussed it at the last ordinance committee meeting, we had a lot of conversation. I think the ordinance committee agreed that we would have it at 12, but we didn't modify it because the language was already written and distributed to the public. So I think it should be 12. And my reasoning is that I think we want to have a neighborly community. And we're not saying it can't be more than 12. However, if they're asking for more than 12, I think it should go to a board. And I think that board, which I think should be the planning board, should make a decision whether that short-term rental can accommodate that number of people and still be a friendly environment for everyone, the renters as well as the neighboring people. And I think relative to the cap number, I think that, again, the board could review an unusual situation wherever we wanted to have more than 12 occupants in the home. And I think they're more than capable of making that determination on whether it will be friendly, whether it's 16 or 20 or a couple more than 20. I mean, I think you have to have the adequate parking, you have to have the adequate space, and you have to have the surrounding that is going to be neighborly to everyone involved. I also think that we need to finalize the conversation on parking. We've had a lot of conversation on it. Originally, it started out as one car per 2 guests. The way it's written in this particular ordinance now, it's 1 car per 3. I personally don't think that works. I don't like the odd number and the oddity of it. I do, however, think that we ought to have an ordinance that says we're going to have 1 car per bedroom. I think that is probably a more justified number and a way to do it. I agree that we also have to clarify the appeals process. The fees, whether it's 1 year for 300 or 3 for 300, I don't have strong feelings about that, although we did hear from one community resident today that said that $900 was a little bit of a challenge in his particular situation. So I guess I would acquiesce and suggest that we have 1 year at 300. But I really think that the parking is a concern. I think it's a concern for both the safety of emergency responders as well as safety for the individual renters. And I think it's also a concern for the neighbors. I've heard, we've been talking about this now for 7 or 8 months, and I've heard from a lot of people at a lot of different meetings about an inordinate number of cars parked up and down the driveways and the parking areas, and the neighbors just didn't like it. It was noisy, it was congested, they thought it was unsafe, and I think we ought to take a good hard look at that as well and make a decision whether it's 1 per 3 renters, 1 per 2 renters, or 1 car per bedroom. Those are the only comments I have. Thank you.
Terry. I pretty much agree with that. I think we all agreed on the bones of this thing in the ordinance committee meeting. Question I had was, if we say 12, are you saying maximum of 20? If we say 12 is the max occupancy, but you could go to the planning board, then the maximum is 20. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm thinking we might want to consider.
I agree.
Whatever the number my opinion, whatever number we decide on, we would cap, even if you could have 39, you can't have it in Canandaigua, end of story. So if you wanted to go from 12 to 20, that's okay.
Then you go to the planning board and
right,
make your case.
Right. Whatever number we come to.
The thing we have to remember is that every single one of these is a commercial operation.
Exactly.
Right. And, you know, the ones we've heard the most about are in residential Lake District. In there, it's strictly residential. There is no option for commercial unless you happen to be grandfathered like one. I have to get into that business, but only one is. So I agree. The number to me is 12, maximum of 20. 1 car per bedroom. I don't know how you, I mean, that gets into if you're going to allow 12 people and the house is set up for, can you have 12 people? Does that mean 6 cars or 4 cars? I mean, or 1 clown car, they all come in, you know, I mean, that's a.
No, and the thing we obviously want to avoid is people paving their front yard to park cars.
Exactly.
We want to, however we can avoid that, we want to do that, so.
Yeah. The thing that, one of the things that John referenced here is that we've been talking about this for quite a while. We need to resolve this thing and get it out there for people so that they know what they're up against. I agree that the $900 fee, we all agreed that was a fair number. I agree because there are some that are running out to 2 or 3 people. $900 all one shot too much. 300 a year.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have.
But it was 900 for 3 years,
For 3,
so it's
yeah.
essentially the same thing. Just
Well, it is, but I
his
mean,
capital outlay is greater.
You know, guy, I don't know what the guy rents the place for, but
It's that
probably
little
not the same
schoolhouse,
number of
yeah.
dollars as
Yeah,
someplace.
I think
we rented, we originally discussed $300 per year with a $900 3-year license, I guess I'll call it, rather than permit, because we thought it was going to be less administrative effort for the town hall people, staff. But now with the software program that we have, it's been told to us that it's not an administrative challenge. And if it was yearly, it probably would be easier for them than 3 years. So I think we're all in agreement with that. I don't think there's a challenge there.
So a couple of things to share. I mean, I'll go with the 12 personally. I was okay with the number at 16, only because for certain properties, I kind of see that as a couple families getting together or parents getting together with their children and having grandchildren over and some of those exceptions. But I'm okay with that. We can cap it. I'll go with the 12 if that's what people are comfortable with. So I'm okay with that. One thing that I have heard, one thing that I think it's a nuts and bolts thing. It's a decision that we're going to have to make. And before I forget, Granicus is the company that we're using, and they do go through and they search all of the databases. And I'd say within the last few months, we've issued between 30 and 50 compliance tickets for people who did not have registered short-term rentals that were discovered. So they since, and of all of those, only one person was issued a fine by the court. Everybody else brought their properties up into compliance, which is what we want. So we have them on the database. So that's working. And I just derailed my thought with where I was going on that when I jumped out to the Granicus. But one question that I've received repeatedly, and I think we were all copied in on the email, is we're going to have to make a decision of those people who jumped in right in the beginning and did and applied for the permit and they hold a valid permit. If the new law becomes a little bit less restrictive for them, then we need to make an adjustment to allow them to roll into that. And I would propose allowing them roll into the new law and not forcing them to go through the whole, pay another $300 or $900 fee. They can just roll into the new law. They don't have to reapply.
Well, if they paid the $900, 300 for this
no.
year, can you just either refund or
they've paid?
I would say a little different.
If they have a $900 agreement.
I think if someone applied prior to our making a new ordinance law, I think they should be grandfathered in under the old ordinance. And then in 3 years after their license or permit, whatever you want to call it, expires, then they would roll into the new program.
But what if the new one's less restrictive?
So yeah,
that's exactly how the law, what John said is exactly how the law, as I drafted it, is written, because that's as far as I was comfortable going based on the conversations we had today.
So what if
now there's some, and I don't know the numbers, I think it's like 20, that under the new law, they could get a better setup for themselves with more bedrooms than they were allowed under the old law.
Increased occupancy.
Right. Now, I wouldn't advise you to just say you be the judge of that. I think you still have to have them come to the cloud permit and development office and have a new permit issue. At which point you've got town staff spending a lot of time. You know, it's a decision. It's a decision you have to make.
But I think we need to look at that as a case by case basis, because I'd hate to punish them. Not punish them, but if they complied, and now the new law is less restrictive, to say, well, you can stay under the old constraints and miss out on some, or you can re-up and pay and get a new application under the new law. Maybe they just paid 2 months ago, and now they're re-upping under the new one. That's just my thought. It's something we're gonna have to consider.
Would it be possible to charge a one-time administrative fee for those people going from the current to the new, and then roll that for 2 more years? So we charge them $50 or something, and then roll it forward where their balance is.
You just add that to your fee schedule as
right.
One-time administrative fee for 201-10 existing STR permit updates.
Right, just to cover our end, or come close to cover.
I'm gonna cut you guys off real quick. Sarah has her hand up, so I know. Sarah, go ahead. I know you have some comments on this.
Yeah, my only comment is just that if, I just don't want to use the word roll into the new law. At any point, if someone who has an existing permit, like if you guys pass this new legislation and we have a new short-term rental law, anyone who has an existing permit who wants to use the new law, regardless of the fee discussion, they would still have to come and apply for a new permit. It wouldn't just automatically give them a permit under the new law. They would just have to reapply. The fee would be whatever the town board decides, but they would still need to come and apply through cloud permit, because they would be replacing their permit with the new one if that's what they wanted to do.
Right, I agree, Sarah, with that.
A little confused here.
I just didn't want anyone to be confused thinking that, you know, it would be automatic or they wouldn't have to apply.
There you
got
got Terry.
Totally new. They would have a new permit number.
Well, I'm not that. Well, I'm confused. What if they'd already applied, had a permit, and we say, okay, the maximum number is 12. If they could fit 24 in there, are they allowed to go with 24?
They have to reapply. And in my mind, they have to reapply. Right.
Okay.
For review.
Yes.
Well, for that, yeah. But
no, if all they want is 12, what Sarah just said isn't true. They just keep the same permit they had for the next 2.5 years, and then would deal with that with a new permit or renewal permit 2.5 years from now. If they want to change, then they really get a new permit. And you guys can decide what the administrative fee for that is. But not as a part of this law, that would be as part of a fee schedule.
Right. But if these people were considered enough to come in and get a permit and follow the rules, why charge them a fee to? I mean, they were trying to.
But we would only be charging a fee if they wanted to go with the new law. So if they were just status quo going forward, no fee, no anything. Just go forward till, like Chris said, till it expires. But if we have to come in and commit Sarah and Mike and all these other people, I'm not saying $300. I'm thinking like $50, $25, just something to kind of take some of the pain away. But they're applying for usually increase in occupancy. So they're not applying to go less. They're applying to go more.
I don't know what they are. I mean, that's.
If we go with 12, as we're talking about now, the existing ordinance states 12 also before you have to go to planning board for review.
We're just capping it. We're just capping a number, right? So they don't get a benefit.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. These people who would be going increasing will also need a special use permit from the planning board.
No, not if it's like right now. If they're approved for 8. And the new law would allow them to go to 12. That's the situation we're talking about. So then they not the 12 to 24. We're talking about like 8 to 12. So, or 6 to 12, whatever it may be. So that's the part we're talking about right now. So.
That to me sounds like a pretty minor administrative modification.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to that, but Sarah probably can. It's reapplying. You know what I mean? They have some of that, like the septic or sewer would be on file, but the process would be the same as if you were applying to do for the first time.
But it's a legal contract. I mean, if they have a legal contract for 3 years, then, you know, we have to honor that obviously for 3 years.
Whoa,
And
that is not a legal
contract.
Okay. That is a permit.
It's a legal
permit that can be revoked
by the town.
Okay.
In exchange for complying with town requirements that are imposed for the protection of the health, welfare, and safety of the town and its residents. That is not a contract. I want to be let's just make sure we all remember that.
What is it then? A legal agreement? I mean,
it's a permit. A permit to operate.
And it's
short-term
the
rental.
reason it's required.
Well, we can't just like up and change it to a different amount without them doing the new permit. So that's they would have to reapply.
You can. Yes, they would have to reapply. I agree with that.
That's the point I'm trying to get across. Is that they'd have to reapply and get a new permit agreement. In order, otherwise, I mean, it's not
change their
it's completely changed law. So
okay,
and I think honestly, I mean, if they did it last year and they have a 3-year permit, unless their occupancy changed drastically, they are at a bit of an advantage because they've got it, you know, set. They know where they can rent for the next 3 years, and it's not necessarily a negative thing that they have a full 3-year permit.
One other thing that was brought up was the local contacts. And that will be, as we get up and running and we have to have more of these involved, more of these, the goal is all of them registered through the Granicus software. But to have that, you know, that property manager residing within 25 miles within that access. So we don't have a neighbor being the de facto property manager or the de facto on call. That is in the code for that, and that makes that very clear. One question that was brought up that I've heard that Mr. Lupton brought up, and he's brought up to me a few times, and I don't think it's an issue, but it's not clear in here, is when is it not being a short-term rental? Do we need to clarify that? If you own a home and you're operated as a short-term rental and you are there with your family, you don't have to comply by all of these rules. It's your dwelling, you are staying there with your family. Do we need to clarify that?
Breakfast.
You know, do we need to clarify that?
I'm sorry, I just can't. That's absurd.
I know.
I get it. Every time he says it, I go, yeah, no, I guess if you've never stepped foot inside the town of Canandaigua and, you know, we're concerned about the Gestapo maybe, but it's just not how we operate. We can't legislate for the worst possible case scenario. We get a totalitarian dictator code enforcement officer, well, you guys can change the law.
Okay.
But
would that somehow factor into that contact? So we'd only gonna do that if there's a complaint. First of all, we're not knocking on the door to say, hey, you've got 30 people here and you're not rented or you are rented. If there's a complaint, call that phone number, and then that phone number says, I'm living there right now. It's not rented out. Doesn't that solve the problem?
That would solve the problem. Alternatively, if let's say Mike Murphy happened to be driving by that house, and instead of said, oh, that looks like a short-term rental that's got 50 people in its front yard. I'm just gonna go knock on the door. I mean, I've had government officials knock on the door. Hey, I see that you got such and such. You have a conversation that lasts for 30 seconds, and they say, "Oh, thanks so much," and you say, "Oh, wow, the government's doing stuff." And doesn't that feel good? And
I think you said in your weekly report that we may go back to ordinance, finalize the language, and then put it out for one more public hearing, and then wrap it up at our next meeting.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some comments that we've been talking about and brainstorming about, and rather than to go and continue to discuss them and take a lot of time. I know we got a busy evening ahead of us. Maybe it's best we take it back to ordinance one more time and distribute it to the public, and then we vote on it next meeting if we can.
Alternatively, I can just make the changes you guys just talked about.
I think
it
so.
sounds like we still need to discuss a couple of them more in depth, you know.
I would like there to be a final version that we're voting on out to the public for them to see and get comments on it.
Yeah. Okay, so the ordinance committee meeting is May 6th, so prepare for that, and then public hearing at the next meeting then?
No, because we need to set the public hearing unless.
No, you just
we can set a public hearing by so we can set a public hearing.
No, you're still, I know you closed the public hearing, but you still have the option before the end of this meeting to sort of continue that public hearing.
All right.
And I think you're not making such.
In your opinion, it's not substantial. It's not a change of substance significant.
It's significant enough that I wouldn't vote on it with these changes tonight. But if you continue your public hearing, you can make changes, publish those, make those available.
All right.
I'll say too, before we close this conversation, I would still like somewhere addressed how people could file for a variance or an appeal, some sort. I mean, if there's because I want to make this law designed for the majority of properties, not for the outliers. So
by New York State Constitution and law, if you have zoning, you are required to have a zoning board. Here's appeals. This is not a zoning law, and I don't see a necessity for an appeals process. These are not, for the most part, these are not zoning restrictions, which usually relate to setbacks, density. This is a little bit density, but a little bit not. I think this applies to the majority, but also the outliers. If somebody, I really don't think you would want an appeals process. I think it would get hung up. And you get a lot of crazy requests that the town shouldn't be granted. That would be my policy-based decision. Also, from a legal standpoint, there's no zoning board. You can designate the zoning board to hear appeals from that. But I don't know that that's a great thing. I can't think of anything that wouldn't fall within this that you would want to be allowed. The one thing you can't do is make yourself the appeal. Unless you want us to just legislate a little bit special something for each and every one of you who asks for it. You can't do that, so you got to designate something like the zoning board. We reviewed this code, so this looks good to us. And I don't know that you want to delegate that responsibility. I guess think before you make that decision that you want an appeals process, figure out if there's anything that you would want somebody to allow that wouldn't be eligible for something in here.
Okay, with that said, unless I hearing no objections, we'll continue the public hearing to May 20th. And I am also making a motion to lay over this resolution, resolution number 111.
Second.
Okay. All right, so that will be laid over to May 20th, where we'll have to take action on it. So that gives us an end date. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Resolution number 112, standard workday for town clerk and town supervisor. Second. Moved and seconded. Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
On the 113, is there a reason that we need it done right away?
113?
Yeah.
No, we're just, pilot agreement expired. The 97 agreement expired. So we're trying to get that buttoned up. So
maybe continue that one.
Okay.
To make we may be able to do it without a $4,500 appraisal.
No, this is the water treatment plant.
Yeah. But that's at a $4,500 appraisal.
42.
It is, but it's to appraise the water treatment plant.
I don't think your assessor is qualified.
No. Huh? She requested that we have it. So let's take a vote, open discussion, and then.
So moved.
Okay, Adeline. So Adeline, first by Adeline, second by Terry. So as part of the expiration of the pilot agreement between the city and the town of Canandaigua and the water treatment plant, obviously that building, the property has not been reassessed in many years. In conversation that I've had with the assessor, she has requested that we hire a certified commercial appraiser to come in and look at the property.
So that was my bet as to what she was going to do, but I've reviewed her preliminary research and stuff, and it's close enough to have discussions with the city on whether or not you want a new pilot agreement or just to assess it. I mean, you've got a basis for value. Maybe it's not the exact value based on what Michelle's already produced. I mean, if you're going to set a specific assessment, just think you might want
to. So, any thoughts? Boards
might want to hold off.
What do you? Well, you're saying that she has a number in mind already.
I don't know if she does, but I've seen her preliminary research, and it gives. She can get a number in mind, and she wants to get it perfect, which I think is a great plan.
But you're saying you just need it close enough.
It could be close enough if you're going to negotiate something with the city.
I think there's a question about that though. So.
Yeah, I don't understand we just throw a number on it in the city, so okay.
No, I think you want to talk about a number. I think if Bruckner comes back with 50 million, everybody's in trouble. Because you guys want to have cheap water, not pay through the nose for it.
Chris, you look at the pilot agreement, it was $12,000 a year for the past 25 years.
Yeah.
Obviously that wasn't its value at that time.
No.
25 years ago. So, I mean, it's going to be whatever we wind up charging them, they're going to turn around and charge us.
That's my point. So you might want to just, Michelle's got a basis for value that you might want to negotiate with the city instead of having a value. A hard number that you can't negotiate at all.
Just have a discussion with them instead of try to arrive at a number, but then keeping in mind, well, we're not going to be any place close to
my fear.
No, we all know that.
Yeah, I don't think you want it. We can't. That's the nature of a pilot agreement. You don't want it.
No, I would disagree with that. I would say we want it to be at its full assessed value to reflect the value of the property.
Yes,
but that allows us to then enter into a negotiation for a pilot agreement with the city that would provide fair terms, knowing this is really the value of the property.
Doesn't the city already have a value for that property? I mean, we know what every one of our facilities are valued at for insurance purposes. Don't they already probably have a number that, I mean, if something happened to it, the city wants to get coverage from their insurer, so.
Yeah, but replacement value is a little bit different. Also, we've got $8 million worth of stuff on that property, right? Well, that adds $8 million to the value there, but
that wouldn't be part of this, though.
That adds to the real value.
It would be removed. It would be removed. It would be an adjustment. It would be an adjustment at the end of the day, taken out.
So that's my point. So it's a complicated valuation for an appraiser. It's not super complicated for an assessor to get to a number that you can base a pilot agreement. You do it. I'm not going to argue about it. I just think it's.
So let's see.
You don't have to spend.
Right. We can't tell the assessor what to do. I understand.
That's correct.
And
so if the assessor says I need this, what's our obligation to?
you have an obligation to
Well, no, I mean,
give her that, but I mean, of course you would.
Right.
But I think I would maybe.
Have you talked to her?
But let me
So
talk to her and
let's
say,
pause,
we
let's
can
pause
get
for a
close.
second. Let's pause for a second. Are there any other board members who would like to comment?
I was just gonna say, we've already talked about how complicated this is
Right.
tonight already. We've got a town staffer that's asking for assistance in figuring this out. I don't know why we wouldn't support that request.
I think what Chris is saying is that if we had an order of magnitude of what the property was worth, that would suffice in us going back and negotiating a pilot with the city. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
If we go back now and we spend $4,200, one, we might not need to spend the $4,200 and we could save it because we could have an order of magnitude and accomplish the same thing. That's what I'm hearing you say.
I would continue it. That's what I meant.
Let's say he has a pilot, whatever number we tell them, going to be significantly less than what the thing is worth.
Absolutely.
So why do you need to know the exact worth?
That's
I
exactly
guess
that's
what
the point.
I guess that's my point. Michelle is I mean, she wants to get it perfect. You know, probably worth $50 million and nobody wants it, or you could create an assessment that makes it 50 million or 10 million.
You know? So you make it 50 million, then you negotiate a pilot, and you're paying 20 grand a year instead of 12.
Exactly.
Which they've been paying all along.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to triple
it. No, we're not
going
to
up by an order of magnitude.
No.
Because that hurts everybody, not just in our town, but everywhere that gets water out of it.
It literally trickles down.
If you're going to enter into a pilot agreement, it's my experience that you don't need the perfect trial ready value that could be challenged. And I'm certain Michelle can come up with a good solid value, but actually I'm certain she already has. And I just might need to explain to her that it's a good solid
So any
value.
other comments? No, from board members. Then so I'll just lay it, I'm gonna lay it on the table. I'll lay it over until next month. If she's comfortable, we won't bring it back up.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I support you guys giving her what she needs, and if she disagrees with me, then that's by all means.
That was under $4,200.
Okay, that's a lot of money.
Okay, so resolution 113 is laid over to the May 20th board meeting. Resolution number 114, appointment of.
Second on that?
No, because we're laying it over to the next meeting. Resolution 114, appointment of seasonal parks laborers.
So second.
Terry and Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Resolution 115, appointment of deputy town clerk full-time.
So second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 116, authorizing the transfer of title to the traffic island located within La Crosse Circle of Fox Bridge 5B-3 from the town of Canandaigua to the Fox Bridge Homeowners Association.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution number 117, accepting the Sands Family YMCA's 3-year proposal to operate the town of Canandaigua summer camp programs and authorizing the town supervisor to execute agreement. Move second. Terry, we'll give that one to John, second by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 118, accepting the resignation of motor equipment operator.
The motion.
We'll give that one to John and seconded by Terry. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh,
I was just gonna ask.
Sorry.
You're looking for replacement?
No,
Okay.
we got somebody who we're gonna replace that with. We have somebody
Moving up from
moving
within.
up.
We already got someone.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. All right, so I'll call, you good?
You're gonna replace whoever's moving up.
Possibly.
That's a problem for a different day. That's a problem, not for this agenda.
We'll find out in
All right.
May, an exciting conclusion.
Gets moved up. Okay, so I will call for a revote on that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 119, accepting the resignation of the full-time code enforcement officer.
So moved.
Moved by Adeline, seconded by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Resolution number 120, acceptance of the 2023 annual drinking water quality report. Second, moved by Terry, seconded by John. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. And thanks for doing that, Courtney. I thanked Jim mistakenly before, and Courtney did, the work, and thanks for keeping us with good drinking water. Resolution number 121, acceptance of soil erosion control sureties. So moved. Second, moved by Dave, seconded by Terry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That one carries. And resolution number 122, request to surplus truck number 7, snowplow dump truck. Seconded by Terry, seconded by John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Resolution number 123, entering into a 10-year lease agreement with Kim-Mar Farms.
So moved.
Moved by Adeline, seconded by John. Any discussion?
What are you
So,
paid per acre?
Per acre, the whole lease is about $2,200 a year.
Okay.
With $100 and some escalators.
I
during the
added
time-
some escalators
during
in
the
there.
time period. Yeah, you did them.
If we're gonna be, it's a.
Now that's a
8-year
10-year,
lease or
right?
whatever.
So the reason we have an existing lease, this is the Stryker Farms. This is the lease of just to the west of Outhouse Park. We have an existing lease. Mark Stryker needs a longer agreement to be able to tie into some of the funding he's trying to get for improvements in water quality, improvements and other things that he is trying to do. That is why he had asked for the bank's doing it as well, re-executing a 10-year lease agreement so he can qualify for that. Any other discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. All right, Heather, don't have. We'll skip over the meeting minutes. I didn't make it onto there. Heather, would you read through the bills, please?
Sure. Town board abstract dated 4/22/2024, totaling $2,113,647.87. General fund $163,908.20. Highway fund $58,616.83. Capital projects $17,322.82. Fire project $1,755,000. Water district $118,800.02.
Can I get a motion to approve the bills? Move.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, bills are paid. I do have one item of other business that we need to have a brief discussion on. The application that we have sitting in front of us for County Road 22, it's an indoor sports complex next to Eagle Gymnastics. As part of the rezoning process, they filed the application. They have now come back and they're making some minor changes. Basically, they're shrinking the size of the buildings that they're putting together. It doesn't fundamentally change the project. We just need to give an opinion that it doesn't fundamentally change this because of what we already approved under the MUO application. So we already approved it. They're making some changes. We just need to come to the understanding that the changes that they're making don't change the project enough, that we would have to reapprove it.
And so the way your town code is written, it says when you make change, after the town board approves the MUO, if they're gonna make changes, they can do so unless, in the opinion of the town board, it's a substantial change. So if everyone's quiet right now, you've had a chance to see it. If somebody thinks it's a substantial change, they should make a motion that this is a substantial change. Otherwise, we've checked that procedural requirement. So there's no action required unless you want to review this change.
We're all trying to be quiet.
Oh, everyone's not making eye contact.
All right, so
looking at the floor.
I'll take that. Hearing no comments, we are rendering a decision of no change.
Correct.
We have our final privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to be heard at this time? I don't see any hands at this time. We do have a couple of executive sessions. I'm just going to hold this right here. Two of them are to discuss the employment history of a particular individual, person, corporation, or matters leading to said dismissal, removal, promotion, appointment, employment, discipline, demotion, or suspension. And the third one is the proposed acquisition, sale, lease of real property when publicity might affect value. So can I get a motion to, what's that?
The people for each of those would be.
What do you want to say?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
People for each
I think for those, we just need the town attorney and we need HR. You're free, so you can just
run away
and frolic. I know you're disappointed.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Frolic.
I don't know. When's the last time you frolicked?
Do we anticipate any action being taken after the executive session?
We do not anticipate any action. So can I get a motion to enter into executive session? Okay, so we have